Welcome everybody. This is Fretboard Refugee, my YouTube channel. I am Bill Callahan. Today is the 22nd of July, 2025, and it is Alternate Tuning Tuesday. This is episode 2 of Alternate Tuning Tuesday. And this week we're going to be looking at drop D tuning. So last week we looked at open D. This week we're looking at drop D. A lot of these alternate tunings involve dropping this lowest string, the physically highest string, the sonically lowest string, what's usually your low E string, to a low D. So drop D tuning has this string at low D, this string at A, just as it is in standard tuning, this string at D, just as it is in standard tuning. So now we have two D strings an octave apart that can provide harmony notes if we're doing scales. It's a good ability to have. Our third string here is on G, just like standard tuning. B on the second string, and high E on the first string. So it's important, since a lot of these involve dropping to D, it's easy to misspeak, it's easy to read drop D and think open D. So just to review, if we're in open D, we're going to be D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. So open D gives you three strings that are at D, and the entire set of open strings gives you an open D chord. That is not the case in drop D. Open G tuning, which gives you an open G chord, open G major at the nut, if you just strum all the open strings, goes D, G, D, G, B, D. So that also a very D heavy tuning. We talked a little bit last week about why you might want to get into open D. A lot of the same reasons apply to drop D, but this is more of a attainable tuning if you're a beginner. You're not worried about changing the pitch of multiple strings. You're changing one string. A lot of your chord shapes, if they don't use the high E, are still going to work. A lot of your chord shapes that do use the high E can be altered in some way so they're still functioning if they're not just using that open E. So whenever you hear drop in a tuning name, we talked about open last week, and open tuning gives you whatever the name of that tuning is as a chord on the open string. So open D tuning gives you an open D major chord. Drop D, we're talking about changing the pitch of one string. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about the whole set of strings. So drop D, we're lowering the pitch of one string. There's something called double drop D, where you lower the top and bottom strings to D. That is another alternate tuning that we might look at in the future. I don't know much about that one. But think of this as maybe the gateway drug of alternate tunings. This came up in Tony's Acoustic Challenge maybe a month ago, and there was this kind of rhythmically interesting chord progression where you use the bass string and various fragments of D or D adjacent chords. So it went pretty much like so you have these various shapes where you can keep the basic structure of a D chord, you still have that D bass note, and you're either hitting D chord variants like that, or you're hitting things that are like a G over D kind of thing. That kind of gives you a clue about what open D is for, what it's good for. We talked about with, I'm sorry, I said open D again. When we talked about open D, we talked about the fact that the D chord is a fairly small quiet chord in the course of things compared to like, let me grab my guitar that's in standard tuning. So when we play a D chord in standard tuning, we avoid these thickest bass strings. So that's your D chord. It can be pretty loud and bright, but compared to like a G chord strummed across all 6 strings, it's a much smaller, quieter chord. If we get into open D or drop D, suddenly we have that big boomy bass string to add into a G chord. I'm sorry, to add into a D chord. So, you got your standard D, but you can also play that with that top D note. You can even kind of, you can even do big boomy things like that. You also have the option of muting it as a bass note. So if you're doing these you're doing a D kind of thing like we were just doing with our drop D chords, but you want to hit that can be deep and thumpy and percussive. It doesn't have to be as melodic. So number one reason, more powerful D. You have access to that entire access to D notes all up and down the body of the guitar. In terms of single note lines, you also have 2 iterations of your D string that are an octave apart. So you can go up and down the fretboard. And you can play a major scale with 2 strings at once. These strings right here, your D, A, D, well, what is an A to a D? It's the 5th. So you have a 5th chord here, better known as a power chord, automatically on these strings. So if we just mute the bottom, or I'm sorry, the highest 3 strings, you have a D5 right there. What's more, if you just bar that, you can move that 1st and 5th shape on all 3 strings up and down the fretboard. So we bar the top, or the bottom 3 strings rather, on the 2nd fret. We've got an E5 power chord. Because we can count, we can instantly play 12-bar blues in any key using just those power chords. Now that's true of any power chord, but the fact is this is a 1-finger power chord that you can always reach. So there's your 1, 4, 5, 4. You almost can have a whole thing right there that is just, any number of chord progressions. You can just bar with 1 finger and go up and down. Although this is not usually thought of as a tuning for slide, you can do that same thing on those 3 strings with a slide. So this can be your E. And you can access a higher version of your 1 chord right there at the 12th fret. So you instantly have a 12-bar blues that's accessible. Now let's talk about the fingerstyle potential of drop D. Drop D. I keep saying the wrong thing. I finally said the right thing and I corrected myself. So what do we have so far? We have a louder, bigger D chord. We have the access to power chords on the 3 bass strings all up and down the neck. We have access to our regular chord shapes that don't involve this string all up and down the neck. Your A minor is still an A minor. Your D, if you don't want to use the bass string, still a D. For that matter, your B minor, still a B minor. A lot of these chords also have D in them. I made a list of chords in the key of D that still have a D note in them. You've got D, A, G, obviously, your 1st, 5th, and 4th. Your F sharp minor, your E minor, your B minor, your C sharp diminished, they can all use a D note. They all get stronger with that. So that is one potent reason to go to this tuning. Now let's talk about genre, where this fits in. Drop D tuning is very old. This is older than a lot of the open tunings we're talking about now. This tuning actually predates the invention of the modern guitar. John Dowland, who was a Renaissance composer in England for the lute, frequently used dropped string to play in the key of D on lute. A lot of that music has been reconstructed for the guitar. Sort of classical lute music is not really in my wheelhouse, but there's a tuning that's always been with us. There's no like one song that brought it into our culture, but you'll see it in the folk tradition and you'll see it in the classic rock tradition. Led Zeppelin did a lot of stuff in drop D. Kashmir is in drop D. A lot of 90s grunge and alternative is in drop D. Fingerstyle blues, you usually see open D, open G because those tunings are friendly to slide, but there's a lot of possibilities in drop D too. If you look at a lot of standard tuning fingerstyle stuff in D, whether it's major or minor, D just kind of lends itself to a more upbeat feeling. Like you'll see Mississippi John Hurt, who's one of the more upbeat blues guys, will do a lot of stuff where he's on a D or in the key of D. Let's say we're on a D7 here, where he'll sort of Travis pick. He'll be going between this low A string and this higher D string. So that ends up with this kind of bouncy feel. And what do we notice about that? The 5th, the A, is higher than the D you have access to in regular tuning. So that kind of gives you this effect where you're leading with the 5th, and your bass note isn't really a bass note, it's technically an inversion. What happens if you take the same kind of vibe in drop D is something that lends itself way more to a bluesy feeling. Why? Because you have that low, powerful 1 note. That first note of the major scale is way down here, not up here. So if you're Travis picking between A and D, you're not going high 5th to higher 1st, you're going low 1st to medium 5th. So, jump on the 7th fret here. You can also use some palm muting. This gives us like a D, I guess this is a D 9th. So So you get that ninth note as your high note. You're not messing around with necessarily a high D. You're using, I guess that's an F sharp right there. You also have the ability to reach some of these D voicings or D bass voicings higher up the neck and still have access to a low bass note. So instead of being stuck down here or having to like pick a spot to fret the A string, for instance, so you can get to that D note, what you can do is you can be up with this kind of voicing of D, and no matter how far up the neck you have to go, I mean, you could even be getting this D note right here and still have access to that much lower bass note. So it lends itself to a darker, moodier kind of fingerstyle playing. I think that's one of the great sources of power of drop D tuning. What else do we got? So, you know, Led Zeppelin sort of popularized this in rock. You hear it a lot in metal, new metal, alternative rock from the 90s, grunge. Why? Because it gives you a lower bass string, it gives you a more percussive sound, it gives you a darker sound just because it's lower. And what did we discuss before? It gives you access to those power chords, so you can just sort of do you can sort of access whatever strummy sound you want to really fast. So it lends itself to that kind of riffy chordage that you hear a lot in, you know, whether it's grunge, whether it's, you know, post-grunge alternative, what they call divorced dad rock, whether it's like a new metal like Papa Roach, you hear a lot of this drop D. That's primarily where we are using this genre-wise. In terms of just the practicalities of playing in drop tuning, one thing to think about is the fact that your string is going to be looser. You're going to get more fret buzz if you're hitting the strings aggressively. This is a guitar that I often use in alternate tunings because of that. I have thicker strings on here just so they can take a little more punishment. That also makes them a little harder to hammer on, pull off, that sort of thing, harder to bend. This is not just an acoustic tuning. There's a lot of, like I said, rock and metal songs that employ drop D. That's about all I got on drop D. I don't really have a good performance piece prepared. I'm going to work on that over the course of the next week and probably post something. A lot of what I've got on hand for stuff to play in the fingerstyle blues tradition is more standard tuning, open D, open G. So it's something I'll work on, getting a little better in drop D. I just don't have any songs that I'm comfortable with in that tuning yet, but we'll get there. This Thursday, we are going to look at the key of D in general. That's going to be Theory Thursday. And next Tuesday, I'm thinking, this isn't final yet, but I'm thinking we're going to do open G. That way we've got the big three alternate tunings out of the way and we can get into some more obscure stuff. Thank you very much for dropping in and listening to me talk. Sorry I didn't really have a piece to play this week that was much good, but I'm just getting into this tuning, just really starting to explore it. I hope you have a great week. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share.